Well, hello, and welcome to Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast, and we are here to do, it's another double feature, well, it's a quadruple feature, or triple feature, of Times Past and talking with David, and I'm going to be talking with David. Dave Steele from Earth 2 Podcast. Say hi, David.
Hello. Welcome back, everyone. It's great to be here. Ross and I haven't spoken for ages, so we're going to make up for that tonight by talking loads.
Oh, yes, and we've already talked loads, which is some of the best conversations on a podcast are had before or after the recording. But we're going to do Starman 1819 and then Showcase 96, 4, and 5.
Yep.
We'll do these relatively quickly. We're going to try to keep the tangents down, and we're going to start with the Times Past in Starman 18.
Yes.
And I'm using the Grand Comic Book Database now as my source for trivia because it's shorter trivia. It is much easier than those long things. So this comic book was cover dated. Oh, my covers don't have cover dates. What was this cover date?
Cover dated April 1996.
It came out March 7th, 1996.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Two days after my 23rd birthday. There you go.
Oh, cool.
That dates it.
It's got a beautiful Tony Harris cover. It's called The First Joust, and it is about the first battle between the Mist and Starman, one of his many first battles, I guess. It has been reprinted 4 times. Starman, Hard Times Past trade in 99, Omnibus Volume 2, 2009. And then this was a trade. Okay, so there was a soft cover of this omnibus in 2012, and it has now been reproduced in the first Starman Compendium.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's good that these things, I'm reading the Will Payton stuff, and none of it has been reprinted. It is so weird.
Yeah, you'd think.
None of it.
You'd think. There's, stick out a trade of the first few, or stick out an omnibus, or maybe not an omnibus, but some.
And it all fit in one omnibus.
Yeah. It would. Stick in the Superman storyline, stick in some of the, the Action Comics Weekly, the one that you did, obviously, and it would fit.
Yeah. So this issue is written by James Robinson, pencils by John Watkiss, inks by John Watkiss. I have no idea if he did anything else after this. Gregory Wright, colorers, Bill Oakley, letterers, and it stars Ted Knight in the Mist, and Starman does. All right. Oh, and I love the synopsis in the Grand Comic Book Database. They're all one sentence. The Mist's first attempt at crimes are thwarted. That's a synopsis.
That works, doesn't it?
You're like going, wow, it took 22 pages to tell that story.
Yeah, it cuts out quite a lot of the detail, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Very distinct.
That's why I've started to use them, because they make me go, okay. What do you think of the art? Before we get started, what did you think of the art?
I like it. As we've said in the past, the Times Past issues are very good because they let Tony have a little rest, and some other artists come in and mix up the style, so we're not just getting Tony all the time. And we love Tony; it's not a bad thing. But I really liked it. It's Ted looks very sinewy, very muscly.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the way Murphy Anderson drew him in the 60s in some ways. And it's very, like we see with a lot of people that draw Starman in the 90s, the use of lighting is very good. And there's a lot of different sort of tonal shades in the colouring. There's a lot of deep blues and a lot of deep reds and stuff. It's very interesting. There's a lot of large panels, very dynamic large panels, which means it's not a story that takes a long time to read, but it's very, very carefully curated, very moody. At points as we go. Obviously, I like the artwork on it a lot.
Yeah, it reminded me a little it had a John Buscema-esque quality to it.
Okay.
To me, just kind of the way the panels are laid out and some of the action. I mean, it's a little rougher than him, and it's a little more Mike Vosberg.
Sure.
And that I mean is a compliment. When I was a kid, I hated Mike Vosburgh. Now when I reread some of that stuff, I go, wow, this is actually pretty good. But I enjoyed it. I like that, when the bright, the first time they're in the club where everybody's been
Yeah,
gassed. It's very bright, like a 1930s movie. You would see the nightclub, and it really
sure.
invokes those kind of
Yeah,
settings that you would see in films.
I love the spread when everyone's sort of lying gas and you see all the members.
Oh yeah, and this is Captain Bailey. Oh shit.
Thing going on with the stylings, it feels very Opal City.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Um, um, well, I like how it evokes different styles. Like I felt like the double page spread in the Kit Kat Club. It reminded me of those '30s movies. The night everybody went to a nightclub. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
yeah, I love that spread. I like in the foreground you can see the members of the band all stretched out unconscious. That's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
I kind of feel you need to kind of maybe look a little closer at. Um, you see all the busy stuff going on in the background that the cops doing investigating. Uh, Ted at the top. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah,
It
and
really,
I like that we're gonna meet Captain Bailey, and this is a good. I'd forgotten about this one when I read it, that it really touches on the 5 murders that just happened previously in Sins of the
that
Child.
exactly. Yeah, that's one of the really interesting things about it. It's one of the things that I think James does it very subtly. If you haven't read Sins of the Child, it works. But if you have read it, it adds a little bit more, and you sort of go, "Ooh,
Yeah, it's kind of like he wants to add on to the mythos,
yeah,
very much so, because it's going to be so important that because we now know that something he says in this about, and you mentioned it before we record, so I'll leave it, but something he says is very reminiscent of what Nash says is, I'm not ready yet.
right,
I'm trying to become a villain,
sure,
So there's something very similar. Um, and I like when we get to the city with the colors, the use of colors, and like the green background, and he's flying when he flies off.
yeah." I mean, it's gorgeous. Like who did the colours? Who was the colorist? Let's look back on that. Gregory Wright. Well, Gregory earned his money on this issue. Absolutely, there's some brilliant stuff. It's he was really consistent with the wider series as it is, but at the same time, because it's a different artist from Tony, it feels different enough on its own. But it's gorgeous. Like, well, you've got to take a drink because Ted flies up and there's a full moon moving overhead. Um, yeah, the really interesting scene with it, with the kind of ochre sort of sepia sort of tint to the mist, remembering his
Yeah,
conversation.
it's like a sepia tone, like you're supposed to be
Yeah,
looking at an old photograph. I love it.
yeah, goons. Yeah, and as you say, this is the mist very early in his career, sort of adjusting to the fact that he's a bad guy now.
Yeah, and because this is the age of heroes, right? And Robinson leans into that thing with the Justice Society. Johns does it, and if you write the Justice Society right, in my opinion, for my taste, is you always play on the fact that they're from a different era.
Yeah,
And they are a noble, what I call the '40s liberal male hero.
yeah,
The guys that went and fought World War II to save the world.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like Jay Allen and Ted Cat are all they've all got to be over 100 by now.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. But
So
there's yeah,
yeah,
and that the villains are villains. That
mm,
there's that kind of stylistic thing of, you want a good villain has got a little, a bit of ego, a bit too much. You know what I mean? I
yeah,
am a villain. Yes,
yeah,
pride
and
in their work.
and the Mist's interesting because he's a proper defined supervillain. There's so many of the bad guys in these old stories are just gangsters or whatever.
Oh yeah,
You know?
or Bund.
Yeah,
Nazi infiltrators, or
yeah.
cartoon gangsters.
He's proper scary, and it's interesting looking at him here because he obviously hasn't got quite as grotesque as he would become in his appearance.
And
You
also,
know,
he's much older than Ted. I mean, because remember, he's fought in the First World War.
right? Yeah, of
So he's
course.
10 or 15 years older than Ted. And
Yeah.
being the Mist must have delayed his. Was he there in that damn All-Star Annual?
Well, I was wondering if maybe him becoming the Mist could that maybe have made him
Age.
age faster? Would have definitely It's definitely going to have affected his metabolism.
Yeah, but
Isn't
he's still around.
it?
He's
Running into gas at the drop of a hat.
yeah. And I like this version of him where the hands and the head are normal, and it's like he's wearing the mist.
Yeah, especially page 7. It just looks like he's wrapped in blankets in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they're
Well,
all
that line
Hmm?
that's a line that stuck with me there actually in page 7. Because at the time this came out, I was working in a bank. I think Peter was around at the same time actually, and just the line when the Mist sort of says, "Large bills, nothing more, nothing small. Small isn't worth the time it takes." And that struck. I'm not saying it gave me ideas about bank robbery or anything. Not no far from it, but it just struck me as I kind of thought, oh aye, yeah, right. That would make sense. There'd be no point in trying to grab the bags. If they robbed us, there'd be no point in trying to get us to give them the bags of pound coins or the bags of 20 pence
So
coins.
you guys use coins. I always find that weird.
Funded.
We don't have dollar coins.
Really?
It's all paper. No,
Gosh.
we have dollar coins, but they're normally for cities who don't want
Yeah.
to make their own subway tokens. We'll sell you those as subway tokens.
Right. Now
But no, yeah, it's all paper.
we had the pound coin. I think since about 1983, pound notes were phased out in the 90s. Yeah.
No, yeah, but
The £2 coin as well.
I think that makes more sense to carry change in your pocket. But I like the gangsters. I mean, then Ted jumping in the next 2 pages, jumping into action.
With a gas mask on, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And do you see what I mean about how dynamic he looks? I mean, at the top of page 9, he almost looks like Batman.
Yeah, he does. This is some of the most actiony Ted, other than like the Jack Burnley stuff that you see.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially in this case, when he's obviously mostly in it as adult, older Ted. He's been, as I'm not going to say old man Ted, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We get a few stories, but not that many stories of him in his prime. And it's good that they've gone to show him just looking so narrow-waisted and so, vital and strong. It really sells him as being quite dynamic.
What I like too, because of that, is they're not drawing him like, because a superhero at this time would be bulky and huge and all muscle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That in the 40s, I like it when someone draws a flashback to 40s heroes, that they do it in the body motif of like the barrel-chested wrestler for Superman.
Sure.
Or, that athletic didn't mean bulky. It could be like a swimmer. Yeah. It's like Ted's got like a swimmer's body.
Exactly. Yeah, he's all shoulders, let's say, and narrow waist, and yeah.
But I like this. I like that, it's 1940 standoff, the hostage,
And Ted gives himself up to save everyone else, which is really interesting. The fact that the Mist could have taken him out there and then, but chose not to. That's really interesting.
But we kind of know that the Mist has a noble thing because we're learning about the medal.
Of course, yeah.
Because he is a veteran and he had, what's that thing where you're the last one that survived? It's a French word. It means a promise. A tantoon.
Don't know.
But it's like you're 5 guys in a unit in movies. It's like they find a bottle of wine while they were, scouring across Europe during the war, and the last one alive will drink a toast and it's
right.
So that kind of noble thing.
Sure. Well, that's the thing. I mean, you get the sense that becoming a supervillain is not something. It's not what he set out to do. He didn't do it deliberately. He's adapting to his his circumstances and sort of going, right, if this is what I'm going to be, this is what I'm going to be. And you can tell, obviously, the life, maybe he gets used to it, or he gets corrupted by his condition. I mean, there's a lot of interesting psychology stuff to it.
Oh, yeah. What did you think about this dynamic about the cop Bailey's like, he goes, Ted offers if you need me, and he goes, yeah, and he's like, other cops wouldn't be on it. He goes, I'm forward thinking.
Yeah, I love that.
I did too. Because it's the first time I've ever heard a cop rationalize why they would do it.
Sure. Yeah, I remember liking this when I first read it because it's because Bailey's a bit of a legend sort of through this through the series. He gets referenced and Ted talks about his adventures with him when he was younger and all that, and it's nice to see him in his prime along with Ted. And it's great to see them working together. I mean, it's bizarre that he doesn't recognise Ted Knight. He's bound to have bumped into him.
I talk about that all the time in the comic.
Yeah, Ted with no mask.
Yeah, Doris never catches on that her wimpy boyfriend is Starman when he's rescued your ass a dozen times.
I've been watching the Wonder Woman TV series recently. Got doing my first full complete watch through of it. And for the first series and a half, Diana Prince wears glasses. You get to the 70s ones, and they give Linda these gorgeous big wide sort of frame tinted lenses. They really suit her. And then I've noticed run about halfway through series 2, she just stops wearing them. So Diana Prince is walking about with no glasses on, and Steve's having conversations with her. And I'm going, does he not recognise that it's Wonder Woman? It's bizarre.
It never makes any sense to me. I have a Wonder Woman story to tell you, because where I grew up, Linda Carter lived near where I grew up.
Oh, wow.
Because her husband worked in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
So you would see her at the mall.
Wow.
And I think we saw her one time at Landmark Mall, which is the Wonder Woman, the second Wonder Woman movie, the mall sequence in the 80s.
Sure.
That's an old mall that they were shutting down.
Right.
Called Landmark. It's right in Arlington City, outside of D.C., right near the cemetery.
Uh-huh.
So I'm watching in the movie going, oh, man, I remember being a little kid going to Sears and the candy counter. But you would see, people would go, oh, I saw Linda Carter recently, because you would see her, because she would just pop up.
That's great.
You'd see her in like the malls shopping. She's a very nice lady. She had in D.C., where you can get a bad reputation fast, she didn't have it. She was...
That's good to know.
Yeah, she's really nice. But because I couldn't watch that show as a kid. How does it hold up as an adult?
It's the first season's very good. It's very charming. The no one looks like they're in the 1940s. There's literally one scene where Etta Candy has to fight a guy who's wearing flared trousers.
My thing about TV back then is it's all shot in L.A. and it's supposed to take place in D.C. And I've lived in both places and went, fuck, that ain't D.C. What the hell? It's like when I was a kid watching Roots. I grew up in Virginia. It's very green. Right. It's green everywhere. And they shot Roots in Southern California where it's brown. It's really brown. It's like, what? There's nothing but dirt.
Yeah. So it's very good. It holds up well. I'm in my head as I'm watching it. I'm sort of comparing it to the Bixby Hulk, and it's not as it's a bit more fantastical to the Bixby Lou Ferrigno Hulk, but it's just as earnest in its own way. It's just as genuine. It's just as warm.
That's good to know, because that's the thing. Yeah.
Good. I'm enjoying it very much, as I say. But I felt that the last few episodes have been a little bit. There's one I watched the other night, and I flicked on the button of the remote control to see how long was left on it, and there was only 4 minutes left, and I thought, what? It feels like it's not even started. So it's a little uneven. It'll be interesting to see if I'm able to persevere, and B, if it changes or flexes any further. But I keep getting distracted by just how ridiculously beautiful she was. I mean,
she still is. And she's like 80.
As a little boy, we'd watch it because it was on. I was far too young to be sort of really, taken. But sometimes I watch her now and I'm just like, I'm standing with my jaw on the floor because she's so beautiful. It's just astonishing. And she's Wonder Woman. She looks like she's walked straight out of an issue of Super Friends or an issue of Justice League. She's perfect. She's
got that thing like Reeves got, and that
exactly.
You're just perfect for the role.
Mm-hmm.
And I've liked some of the other Supermen. Some of them a great deal, but he's just he gets it so spot on.
Yeah.
And she does too.
She's so good. There's so many scenes where it's sort of cliche as every episode finishes with a close up of her smiling, but and it's tempting to kind of just dismiss her as a pretty face, but she's she gets a lot of real meat in some episodes. When she gives it real depth. And it's not even through the script; it's just through her expressions, her performance. She's wonderful.
Oh
But
yeah.
anyway, let's get back to Ted.
Yes, that's it. Well, but I mean, we haven't talked about Shade a bit, but I think Shade is less front because Shade can be in these times past very front and center because a lot of them. The next one we're going to talk about, he's the character.
Of course.
But I like this one. But I also like how he with this thing where he's talking about the difference between, say, Ted and that Dark Champion he's a man of science, not a detective.
Yes.
But he can solve crimes because he's so smart.
Yes.
And I really like that that's why he's good at this, is because he just,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, because what am I thinking of? I was thinking of one, I can't remember, it might even be this one that I think about it. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's what it is, it's the next page. Just when there's that panel on page 15 of Ted just sitting on top of a building, working it all out.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should mention the Shades little thingy here when he talks about Sierra Smith and Roy Raymond and Wesley Dodds very briefly. That's quite good. I think at the start he mentions Captain X, who's a character I've never read in any shape or form.
Well, yeah, he talks about him. He talks about Sierra Smith. I like this one. I recall a 50s Western private detective, Sierra Smith.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Sorry.
Right. Made headlines. He trailed a mad dog killer through 5 states using clues and cunning. In the end, chase involved jet fighters and rodeo clowns, a lot of post-atomic craziness. And the media loved it, to be sure, as Smith's daring overshadowed his superb feats. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of this throwback, the pop culture references Robinson likes. What kind of who his favorite Philip Marlowe is, that whole conversation.
Yeah, there's the bit that stuck in my head, especially as someone who worked in a record shop for 20 years. There's one scene, we haven't got to it yet actually, we're probably a good while away from it. I think Jack's out for dinner with Sadie and he talks about buying something and the cashier tells him how much it is and Jack says, yeah, money's too tight to mention. And the clerk says, oh yeah, simply red, and it lets Jack, or James Robinson, Dear Jack, have a little pop that anyone that's not heard of the Valentine Brothers or whoever it was that did the song originally.
Yeah.
There's a slight snobbishness sometimes, I think, when this comes through, this aspect of him, this, look what I'm into, look what I know about, and if you don't know the same stuff as me, then you're not cool. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's true because my brother has the same kind of taste as James Robinson. When he does it, it comes off a little snobbiness, and I think but I think he pokes fun of himself in the sins of the sins of the son. When Michael's being tortured, it's that pretentious twaddle, and I think that whole conversation. Who's your Marlowe? Who's this? Yeah. That kind of snobby conversation. All nerds have had, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I think it helps him in this though. Like I didn't, and I think he's also throwing stuff out there to go. I've mentioned that. Am I gonna show that later?
Right. Yeah. It's like the Teddy Pendergrass moment, isn't it?
I like that though so much.
I love that. I remember at the time being like, who? And then ask someone else, and it was like, oh, Harold Melvin, the Blue Notes. All right. Okay. Cool. I've told you this before. I bought a. Is this a tangent? Is that a tangent? No, it's relevant. Like I bought a Little Anthony and the Imperials CD when I run about the time that Starman was being published. Just so I could get Hurt So Bad.
Oh my God.
The song. Anyway, that's for another.
Well, I think at times in reading this I may have done it, but other comics I've seen something and gone on to like TMC and found the movie and gone, oh, I want that.
Yeah.
But I understood that whole conversation in the Philip Marlowe one, except for one dude. I have no idea who he is, but I've seen all the other ones because I have a brother who loves Raymond Chandler. But I like this. I like that. I mean, the action's good. We get to meet the painter I've only seen as he's the old man where the nurse gets killed.
Of course, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But this whole the fight over the bridge, and he lets him, and the Mist lets himself be captured.
Yeah.
And as he just finished and sends the child, I like this whole thing around the fireplace where all the murder victims are all in a single place, and we understand why now.
Yes.
Because it's never told us why in Sins of the Sun. Why those 5 people?
Yeah, and Jack's not able to work it out, and it's it's a reward for the reader. You sort of do wonder if Jack gets the information as well. Did the Shade tell him? I'm sure he probably did.
Well, I think what we're reading when we're seeing the Shade's writing is Jack's reading it.
Yeah.
You know, it's where this is really Jack getting information because just bit by bit by going through the Shade's journal.
Yeah.
Which I loved it, and I think overall I think the whole issue is just. It's a great way to do another Mist story right on top of a Mist story, but not beat a dead horse. And add another layer to the story you just read and go, oh, but what does this mean? Is this going to come up more?
Uh-huh.
Or it's just explaining how there's a machine, how the Mist got his power, how Nash got her powers, why she did this. We now know why she did the big crime spree, because that was her dad's kind of thing.
James is very good at that, though, that sort of, good, Scotland have scored a goal back, that helps. James is very good at that long game sort of plotting of dropping things in and, things popping up again. Like the Hamilton, we're slightly ahead of the Hamilton Drew element being introduced, but that's another good example of it. Actually, what you're saying about the Mist there, this is obviously, it's the Mist year because there's that whole big, you just had Sins of the Father, which is he's sort of present, and ethos basically, and he's appearing here, and obviously he's appearing in 4 issues of Starman Mission Theatre at the same time. He's getting a lot of exposure, which is good, I think, especially with the Starman Mission Theatre issues as well, because it just adds all a bit of context, and it's nice that the idea of all these writers talking and planning and sort of going, right, well, if I do this, you can do that. Yeah, okay. And then I'll do this. Brilliant.
Yeah, I do like it. And we were talking earlier that after what we covered today is the first the Wesley Dodd team up with him, and then there's an annual that I forgot is coming up. The annual that's got a different Starman. It's Shade in the future telling different Starman stories through time.
I love that.
Legends of the Dead Earth. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then we eventually get to the Shazam crossover comes up not that far away.
Yeah, in the 30s. Yeah. But it's a little while. We've still got the Poster Demon. We've still got the what's it called? Infernal Devices.
Oh, that's right, because then there's the next time. What the times pass in there is is a Disco Starman one coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, such good stuff. But let's move on to Talking to David. We talked about that Talking to David may not take that long, but it's still beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the pirate one.
Very crisp is the word I use for it, I think. But the same, you can almost smell the salty air.
Yeah, and because at some point in an issue before, which I haven't read, is a young woman saved by the pirate.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a plot line that just disappears and never gets finished.
It takes they come back to it, but it's a long, 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 long time.
Yeah, that's true.
I seem to remember at some point when Jack's on a rooftop somewhere, and he says he can smell
sea air,
something, and you're like, what? And it's years before they come back to that.
Yeah.
I often wonder what happened with that. Did James maybe just get distracted by other things, or was his planning maybe not as precise?
Or he wrote it and went, it's not very good. Maybe that. But I like this one is it just starts with Jack being marooned, flagging down this kind of ghostly pirate who won't talk, but he knows something's going on.
Yes. Yeah, because everything's in black and white, and he knows he's back in the special, scary, dreamy place.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He goes. Yeah. This might sound crazy, but you haven't seen a brightly colored superhero around. You. Red, green, red, glowing hot rod, hand rod.
Yeah, he can fly with it and fire bolts of energy, ring any bells. But of course, the pirate doesn't say anything. But then the pirate,
Is
well,
David.
Jack looks away. The pirate changes, which is very, very funny.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't give the credits on this one, but we kind of jumped right into it. But this is more beautiful Tony Harris work.
Yes, gorgeous.
It is, and I love that David's happy in this story.
Mm.
You know, he seems very happy playing pirate. He's happy he tricked his brother.
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting thing. We've talked about it before. I'm sure we'll talk about it again. But in a way, death almost seems to suit him because
Yeah.
he doesn't seem as weighed down with the Starman legacy anymore. You know, this guy that we're seeing, he doesn't feel he's having to live up to anything. He seems, you know, despite what's happened to him, he seems quite content, and obviously that will get played out in the future. He's, you know, as we know, we're not going to spoil that for anyone listening who hasn't read the story.
Yeah. But again, it's what I like about these, and this was beautifully done, and it's just a conversation. They're catching up.
Yeah.
There's nothing big going on. They're just
No.
sharing. They're just like Ted's happy to see him. You know, you know, he's
Yeah.
telling him about Solomon Grundy and Michael.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah, that. While I'm here, obviously, because obviously he did issue 17, which has that little panel. Grundy gets a bad rep. He was. I seem to remember he was directed. Was he not under the influence of someone else? And he grabbed Mr. Bones and
it was an accident. Yeah, they were fighting, and he didn't do it to kill Sylvester. Just in the melee it happened.
Yeah.
And I like that Solomon Grundy. I like the idea that every Grundy is a different Grundy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like the sweet Grundy. I like, the thing with John's JSA, the future JSA being redeemed villains. I was like, I like that.
Yeah, that was interesting.
It was a neat way on Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
What would Legacy look like?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle's kids, Jack's son, Kyle's a member.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I mean, and I like that Grundy. And I like, and Mason, because I kind of gave up on Infinity Inc., so I've not read the back third.
Right. I'm not a fan of that series. Every time I say that, Peter's always like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, I don't like it." So it'll be interesting to see what happens when we get there on Earth 2. Shout out to the Earth 2 podcast listeners.
Yes.
Just convinced Ross to take part in another episode. So Ross has got loads of dialogue to record for us now.
Oh, good God. Good God.
But yeah, Grundy's is again. We don't want to jump too far ahead. It does a lot of very interesting stuff with the Grundy.
Yeah, but I think
reincarnation thing.
I think since having just finished, I haven't finished it yet, folks. We're recording way ahead, but having read it a couple dozen times, Since the Childhood is so good, it's really that moment. Because when I explain Starman to people, it's about the hero's journey. It's a guy who has, his father was a hero. He doesn't want to be his dad. Who wants to be their dad? Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
He becomes a hero reluctantly. Then he accepts being a hero. Then he questions being a hero, and then he goes on the hero's quest and decides what his final fate as a hero is. But I'm forgetting it then, since the child, he's Starman.
Mm.
In his own mind, he has stopped. Am I Starman? Do I want to be Starman? No, I'm Starman. This is what I do.
Yeah, yeah.
And this conversation is kind of him talking through that. He's telling his brother about, I fought the Mist again, and Solomon Grundy's hanging around, and then they're going, isn't he the one that killed Sly? And then they make a crack about Jade.
Yes, pretty cute for a green chick. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You can see, because when you look at the way Jack's body language when he's telling David about it, he's obviously very excited about it. He's into it. It's he's definitely getting over the reluctance. Well, we should mention the fact that Jack's clothes change into pirate clothes as well.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And that's what
as he's talking, they're slowly morphing.
yeah.
And then so does David. He has a full pirate garb in green and red, yellow.
Right, into page 13, he looks phenomenal.
Isn't that a great costume?
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Let's do a Starman of the pirate generation. You know, where they on Gotham by Gaslight or something.
That'd be great. Yeah. Right.
Pirate of the Sea of Stars.
Absolutely.
All right, and then they get into they go and fight another ship. And this is, what did you think of the pirate? Is this a real pirate shanty, or is this him writing one?
Let's have a look.
I'm not an expert on pirate.
Oh, right, this one. Oh, keg and lime, ye horton sharks, for spur my blood this very hour, ye. Spanish prize lie starboard and should no hold us. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not an expert either.
But I think it works.
It's a bit Watchmen-y, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Is this post-Watchmen? Yeah, it says 88.
Yeah. Good long time afterwards.
Yeah.
I was never reading Starman as it was coming. I was never quite convinced by the pirate stuff. I'm not into pirates. It's not something that really gets my blood flowing or excites me in any way. And I wonder, obviously Tony's studio is called Jolly Roger's studio, so there must have been an influence on Mr. Harris from all that. But it looks good. I mean, as you say, but David looks amazing in that gear. Just needs a big yellow star on the back of his jacket. Perfect.
Oh, it's amazing. I love it. And I like his Starman costume with the green touches a star, but in a different way where it doesn't bug me.
Yeah.
But I like it's all a treat. They play pirates together. They shoot the shit, and then it's your birthday, bro. I got you a present. And it's like they get landed Opal before it was Opal City.
Mm.
And he's like, I got you a present, and it's his mom.
Yeah.
And I love that. She's in full color. You see David running down the gangway crying and thanking, and he's going, "You don't have long, an hour." Okay. Oh, Davey, thank you, man. Thank you. Anytime, bro. Anytime. And he's just happy, man. It is such a fucking good ending.
Interesting just to note that as he runs down the thingy, Jack's clothes are shifted back. He's dressed like Starman. We first see him, he's wearing tattoo clothes because he's been shipwrecked, but he's fully dressed in the trademark coat and black jeans and stuff, and it's lovely. It's something that obviously, without labouring the point, resonates with me a bit more now than it did when it first came out, because my dad's no longer with us, obviously, and you think what it'd be like to see them again, kind of stuff.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I don't have both of mine are gone.
Yeah. It's very nice. It's not overdone. It's not syrupy. It's because we then don't see Jack's conversation with her. That's left to the imagination, or to put it another way, it's kept private.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is with these talking with David. Is he really seeing Davis? Well, is he really seeing David? If you're following along and are reading along or haven't read it all the way to the Starman all the way to the end, what's the deal with David?
Yeah.
But it could be like the Shade reading the journals. This is how Ted's subconscious is compartmentalizing what he's experiencing.
Jack's subconscious.
Yeah, Jack's subconscious. This is how it, is it communing with David, or is it just his brain?
Yeah, I mean, is this what, the third one, but that second or third one?
Third one.
Third one. Listeners, that just demonstrates the collapse of my short-term memory. Yeah, he's obviously, Jack started to anticipate it now, because he says to the pirate, he knows where he is, right, okay, everything's in black and white, and everything's a bit weird. So he's kind of, wait, is that you want to England?
But I liked it when it was for a lot of talking and the pirate chanty and all that. Not a lot happens except a catch up and a very nice birthday present.
Yeah, it's a nice little handy recap, and also if this had been someone's first issue, it gives them an idea of what's going on, and it's a nice little, like issue 17 actually. It's another nice little pause before some really major stuff happens, and it's a nice little, bit of character development for Jack, because you do see that he's a lot happier with his lot than he was previously. He really is accepting it. He's really getting stuck into the role now.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Well, so that's normally, folks, we would stop with the time, especially when they back to back and we got to do 2 comics, but we have 4 to do because in the omnibus is Showcase 96 4 and 5, which is we're going to see a flashback, a shade of something he's mentioned before. Yes, I love this. These were a great book, folks. They came out for about 4 or 5 years, and they were just an anthology book.
Yeah. You got a real good mix of characters. Some years it was the emphasis was on Gotham City characters. Some years the emphasis was on Metropolis. Others it was a bit more random. So issue 4 here, cover dated April. What? Let's have a look. It must be April '96, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and it came out March 7th.
This has got the Guardian, and it's also got the short-lived version of Firebrand, who's one of the most '90s characters ever.
I don't even know what that is.
I think it ran to about 9 issues. It's one of these things that I picked them up long after the event and I've never read them. Firebrand obviously is the same name as a member of the All-Star Squadron and a member of the Freedom Fighters. Was it Rod Riley, Danette Riley? I think that was the name. Yeah. I have no idea if he has any connection to the other ones, but I'll have to figure that out at some point before.
Yeah, I've never read all of these. I've read random ones.
Yeah, I've got more. I don't even to this day. I don't think I've got a full set. I've got most of them. There's 2 or 3 here and there I don't have, but they're a good. They're a good. What I always call a good toilet comic.
Yes, I know. No, I found a new book in the little library. My wife goes, "What's that?" And it was Strange Medical Procedures of the Past, where it's like 3-page articles, and I went, "This is the best kind of book for the toilet." Random trivia and bad history. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but we're doing this. It's a 2-part story, and it is entitled Day and Night, Night and Bright, and it is the Shade and Dr. Fate team up. And he mentioned this early on, why he liked to screw with the Flashes for entertainment, and he had actually teamed up with Dr. Fate at one point.
Yeah, I think was this why the Shade wasn't present when the Ragdoll thing was happening? Was this because he was off?
Yeah, he was having this. Yeah, he was having this adventure.
Yeah, and this story obviously is drawn by Matt Smith, who drew the Ragdoll Times Past story, which we've covered.
And I love it. When I saw it was him, I was very happy because I do like his art.
Yes.
I really like it. Really suits this story.
I remember I didn't pick this series up. I wasn't reading a lot during '96. My attention. I was having a Doctor Who year during 1996, so I was picking some comics up but not reading them. So I was picking up Starman and Shazam and Jonah Hex and Green Lantern, but I was stockpiling them for when I would catch up with them, and I did that the following year. So Showcase '96, I didn't pick these up until a long time after the event, and I didn't actually read this story until my Starman read-through during lockdown. That's the first time I'd read it.
Oh, really? I'd forgotten about it, because it wasn't in the trades.
Exactly.
But now I've got it in 2 different formats, but I liked it. It's the Shade telling a story, and you see him. He's messing with Jay and Ted in the first one, and then but he's kidnapped by Dr. Fate, and I love Matt Smith's Dr. Fate.
Yes, I like the We should quickly give mention again to the way that Matt Smith draws the Flash running. Very separate.
But I like he draws them both differently.
Yeah, I like it. Jay's shirt looks quite loose and not as skin tight as Barry's uniform does.
Yeah.
It's cool, and it's great because they're all squaring up, and then the Shade disappears, and obviously because he's been summoned by Fate. It's a very blocky Dr. Fate. It's almost touch the Kirby to it, I think, like a superpowers Jack Kirby Dr. Fate,
Yeah, it does. It looks like I was gonna say the guy who did it after when Giffen was McManus.
Right, was that
Sean McManus.
Was that in the DeMatteis ongoing?
Yeah, I think so.
I was talking to Shag about that briefly yesterday, actually. It's in my bedside priority reading pile.
Okay.
But I haven't got to it. So you have a second conversation I've had with it.
It's a good comic. I read it religiously.
Maybe when Terrors, I'll start on it.
But what I like about this story, one, the art, but it's set in the, well, it's hard to tell because time, when did Barry become the Flash changes.
Yeah. So,
but it's very much like a 1940s kind of or a 60s kind of story because they're battling alien space Nazis.
Yeah.
It's got mysticism, it's got high science, it's got animal people and Nazi uniforms.
Mm. I like the conversation between them both when they catch each other up and on what's going on, who they are. Very wordy, but beautifully illustrated. You don't mind.
I don't really mind it if it's the Shade talking.
Of course.
But, but it's a great conversation because it's one, we're setting up more about Culp, which is going to play a big thing. Even though this came out in a separate book, this really kind of sets up what we're about to see in the not the immediate story after, but the story after that.
Yeah. And that's what that was my takeaway when I read it for the first time, was like, oh, okay, I wish I had read this a lot sooner because it would have added a little bit more resonance to some stuff.
Yeah, I think it works, and I think the art works with it.
Yeah.
I really dig it, and this was a nice little treat. I do like his fate. I like it when the helmet comes. The helmet makes sense too. Because you know what I mean? It's big enough to hold a human head, but when you put it on sometimes it's like, how did you squeeze your head in that?
I remember one page of Dr. Fate in Legends drawn by John Byrne when he's got the helmet on, but his head looks tiny.
It does. I know exactly what you're talking about because I don't think Byrne draws Dr. Fate right, ever. It's always a little off. We're busting on the head, but I like this background story, and that's the whole first issue, really.
Mm.
They get to the cliffhanger as they find the hideout of Culp, and it's a radio tower, and these people are they're half birds, half Nazi.
It's really, I mean, yeah, the radio stations and Siphon Energy and stuff. It's cracking, isn't it?
It is. It's just really moody. It's very pulp. It's it really is like a BPRD or a Hellboy comic.
Yeah, I like the scenes where he takes the helmet off. We should talk about that briefly. He takes the helmet off so they can converse as Kent Nelson in the Shade, and it's got that classic Dr. Fate sort of squared off angular speech bubble, which I always liked. I always thought that was cool.
Yeah, I do. It's such a good costume. It's
Oh yeah.
But I like the aliens. I like well, they have the battle and they go. It's basically basically a battle to stop. What is he doing anyway?
Well, he's using these radio broadcasters to sort of siphon energy from people.
Oh yeah.
And I sort of wonder if this had come out in the '60s, it could have been seen as an attack on pop music. The dangers of pop music, and maybe even the dangers of the British invasion. I suppose it could have been an anti-Beatles story in an issue of Showcase.
Yeah, it's definitely a Teen Titans villain.
Yeah.
We're going to use pop music to stop you. But it's for what is this? 8 pages? Hold on, the second one.
I think so.
10 pages. Part 2 is 10 pages. But these are sweet little stories. And this one, letters by Chris Apeliopoulos, who does a lot of stuff for Image, and I think he's the editor-in-chief of Image now.
All right, okay. Wow.
Yeah. He letters Savage Dragon. He's one of the Image. He's like the letterer Image guy. He was one of the,
Right.
He went over there and did it. But these are great. These are, there's not a lot here. But it's just a good story, and it's adding up because we're getting to the poster story.
Mm-hmm.
First we have a little Sandman, then we get a little.
It's nice to see. Nice to have a story for Shades, sort of, away from the sight of everyone else gets, is doing hero stuff.
Well, it's it's good to show that because that's a big thing that Robinson did. Is the Shade's only a bad guy in certain places.
Yeah.
And he does it for entertainment. He doesn't do it for money. He's rich. He's immortal. He's powerful. He's just bored because he's lived
Yeah,
so long.
yeah.
But I like those folks. If you're reading a lot, I mean, get them. Well, all those. I'm assuming the showcases are probably all on the app. If you get the ultra version of it, and they're in the compendiums and the omnibuses. Um, but they're worth reading. I'm glad they're in there.
Yeah, it's a brilliant looking Doctor Fate. Matt Smith's artwork really suits him, and it's always it was. I imagine at the time this would have come out, it would have been. As I say, I didn't read them at the time. Didn't read them for a good while after, but I suppose at the time it would have been a nice little sort of sidebar, sidestep, extra bonus feature almost, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, comics are doing pretty good. Was I working in a shop when these were coming out? No, I don't think so. I might have had a real job. But I like things like this, and these are a way to get people to try other books, try out characters. I don't
Yeah.
know how well it works whenever they do it, but they try it from once a generation.
Yeah, it was always nice when DC did this sort of thing because you read a lot of characters because obviously issue 5 has the Connor Hawk, Green Arrow, and I think Poison Ivy on the cover. It looks like
No, it's Thorn.
it's the Thorn, isn't it? Of course,
Yeah.
I knew that. We did it with the Thorn.
Penciled by Steve Irwin. I bet it's very interesting looking.
These are characters. In most cases, they're not going to carry a book on their own, but they're popular enough, and these books are always good for letting some artists, new artists maybe get a tryout at the same time. People
Yeah.
get a bit. It's like the old anthology books, Weird War Tales or House of Mystery and all that. As they went on, it was.
Well, I'm looking here, and I've not read her Doom Patrol, but Rachel Pollack, who did a well-received run on Doom Patrol, passed away this past year.
Yeah.
She wrote the New God story in there.
All right.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, well, David, I'm going to wrap this up. Folks, if you're not listening to Earth 2 podcast, you're just a silly fool, and you need to go back and start at the beginning. It's a joy. It's how me and David got to know each other. Is me just gushing about it. It's a fun ride. And you're up into the 70s now, so.
Yeah, we're into 1973. We recently did the 1972 Justice League, Justice Society, Seven Soldiers team up crossover. Ross very graciously lent his voice to Ted Knight's Starman, and we're twisting his arm into doing some more voices for us for some other episodes before the end of the year.
Cool. I'm excited.
That's that. If that's an incentive, then there you go.
But no, you cover everything. I noticed that that knockoff brand Plastic Man popped up on the internet again.
Yeah, the MF Enterprises Captain Marvel.
I don't know why, but I saw when it popped up. Folks, they even covered that, and I had never heard of it. And I know comics.
That was one of my favourite episodes to do. That was a delight. We did that a couple of years ago, and this version of Captain Marvel, listeners who fought baddies called the Ray, and Dr. Fate, and Plastic Man, and all sorts of stuff. You may be able to track the issues. If you don't know them, I would recommend tracking issues down. They're pretty cheap.
Well, there's these weird little sidebars where people would try to create a comic book brand line in the 60s and 70s with just random. Hey, no one's using that name. I won't get in any trouble. No, you will. All right. But folks, tell folks where else they can find you, David.
I'm also an occasional contributor to a Doctor Who podcast called Power of Three, and another one called Pieces of Eight, handled by my good friend Kenny Smith. I'm on Instagram at David Steele. Sorry, that again. I'm on Twitter at David Steele. I'm on Instagram at _David, and I've joined Blue Sky, where I'm just at David, but I'm not on it very much yet. So I have to make more of an effort with that maybe. But I keep forgetting.
A lot of really fun comic people are on it, David. It's a nice little clean corner, a little less.
Yeah,
I don't get a lot of the bad Twitter stuff come my way because I'm very.
Yeah, I think Dan Schmidt's on it, and Max from the Weird Warriors podcast is on it. He was nagging us to set one up for the podcast, so I'd set my own up, but he hasn't. Last time I checked, he hasn't followed me back. Tisk. But yes, Blue Sky. We'll see how it goes. Give it a shot.
All right. They all look like Twitter to me, so whatever. All right, folks. Well, David and me will be back because he discovered something else that needs to be talked about. So he's going to sit here and talk to me. And there's a lot of we're really going to get into a run to where I may change the layout or how I do things. We're going to cover another Mist story, and then the Sandman team, the Sandman, which I remembered as a crossover and didn't realize that none of it is Sandman Mystery Theater. It's just all in Starman. I think what I may do is, for those 4 issues, do an issue of that instead of doing an issue of Ted. I will do a Sandman story.
Sure.
To kind of spread out the Ted for a while, because I'm almost done with the Jack Burnley stuff.
Sure. Yeah. 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 You don't want to run out of Ted stuff too early.
Oh no, but I've read the first volume, and I've only read like the first couple stories in the second archives, which is the Gershwin stuff, where the art is the book becomes something totally different, something amazing. I do really love the different. They're 2 totally different comic books in a lot of ways. Do you have the 2 hardcovers?
Yeah, I've got them both.
Yeah, if you ever was reading, jumping around between the 2, and they are really 2 different comics in a lot of ways. It's very neat.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I suppose same thing happened to Wesley Dodds, and Dr. Fate shifted around quite a bit as well, didn't he, back in the day?
Yeah, I prefer him in the gas mask and the suit over the Kirby stuff.
Definitely.
It's just more fun. All right, folks. Well, that was a fun conversation I with David. This is me in October of 2023 when that was recorded almost 6 weeks ago. I've been sitting on it. There's a lot to edit. We had some technical difficulties. I hope you enjoyed it. And as much as I enjoy talking comics with Dave, I mean, it's always a blast. But I just wanted to say thanks to him and say my goodbyes for this week's Opal City Confidential. Next week we'll be seeing more Will Payton. And then I have other plans for more Starman fun. Following this weekend will be Danger Street and first issue special number 10. And I'm looking forward to that. So, folks, as always, be safe, be smart, please be kind to each other. This is a wacky, crazy world. And read some comics.